All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse Hildebrand, and I'm with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those who don't know, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. So right now, we're joined by 4 classes from across North America. We might have 2 more join us a little later, but we'll go through them one by one to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout out. So first, we've got Mrs. Bendo's grade 3 class from Guelph, Ontario. Hi, guys. They're waving. The mic isn't working, but they're waving. That's exciting. Okay, we've got Mrs. Hoffman's grade 5/6s from Toronto, Ontario as well. Awesome. My powers of demuting the mics are completely blocked off right now, so it might just be waves, Mary, like excited waves. All right. Mr. Wiseman's grade 4s from Frankton, Indiana. And then Mrs. Lynch's grade 4s from Kalispell, Montana. Hi, guys. All right. Of course, the reason you're all here today is for our amazing speaker. We're joined live by Mary Burak. She's a Yale Ph.D. student in their Environment and Forestry program, a fan of Stranger Things and chocolate. But I don't think she's talking to us about that today. She's going to share her stories of studying human-carnivore conflict in Tanzania and more, which sounds very, very intense, and we're going to see how it goes. We just got a 5th class, too. We got Mrs. Roach's class, so welcome, guys. Yeah, so let's get underway, Mary. Without further ado, take it away and blow our minds.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me into your classrooms, be it virtually. I'm really excited to do this. You are all my first classrooms that I'm speaking with since starting my PhD program. So hopefully I can share some of the knowledge that I have gained over the last, 14 months since being a PhD student. I'm going to screen share right now because I have a whole bunch of pictures and one video I think will be really awesome to show you. So let's do that. I'm going to start it now. Like Jesse said, I will be talking a lot about the relationship between humans and carnivores. Carnivores are amazing creatures, be it tigers or lions, which are what I'm going to be talking about today, or bears or wolves. But oftentimes, humans and carnivores have a lot of conflict with each other. Just to start, before I really get going into my science, I do want to introduce myself. I am a New Englander through and through. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I spent my summers in Maine. I went to college in Rhode Island, and I've moved so far west now to the great state of Connecticut, where I'm currently living, and I'm a student at Yale in New Haven. I will say, when I was in college, I studied abroad for 1 semester in Kenya and Tanzania. And for me, this was a life-changing experience. I met some of the most amazing people, including my host mama, Susan, who's in this picture. And I saw incredible landscapes and wildlife that I never thought existed or never thought possible for me to see. And when I left and went home, I really thought, wow, if I could make a career out of working over here and studying these things that I'm so in love with, that I would be hitting the jackpot. And so far, that plan of mine has been working. And I hope it continues into the future. So, like Jesse and I have kind of hinted, I want to talk about human-wildlife conflict because this is the reason I do what I do, or I study what I study. And so to give you some examples of human-wildlife conflict, it's really based off of humans and wildlife existing in the same space or in the same landscape, but using it differently. And oftentimes these different uses cause problems. And so I think one example that we're really familiar with is roadkill. I know living in Connecticut, I unfortunately see a lot of deer hit on the side of roads, but this is one example. Down south, sometimes we hear about alligators getting into people's pools and needing to be moved. Depending on where you live right now, you might be told to pack your food carefully when going camping so bears don't come looking for it. All over the world, illegal hunting or poaching of wildlife occurs. This is one example of conflict. Another is of carnivores like lions coming and attacking people's livestock. So not a direct thing on humans, but indirectly through things that they own. And lastly, another example is that of fences. Humans will build fences to keep people out of places, or maybe wildlife out of specific places. And this can be a huge issue, especially for the larger animals that require large spaces to move around and live in. So these are all of the things I think about when I do my research. And so based off of that, my biggest research questions are, how do humans affect wildlife? What exactly are humans doing that negatively influences wildlife? And because of that, how can humans and wildlife coexist? How can they live together in the same landscape in a way that benefits humans and benefits wildlife? And so to answer these questions, I'm very lucky because I get to go out and study lions. I study lions in Tanzania. Lions are a fascinating species to study. They're one of the only social cats, meaning that they live and work in groups together. And so we know that, we call that prides. So lions will live in prides of a few adult males, many adult females, and all of their young. Lions are really interesting. They live to be about 10 to 14 years old. So very similar to perhaps your dogs at home. And they are known as hyper-carnivores, so meaning over 90% of their diet is meat. Lions are known to prefer larger mammals like zebra and wildebeest. You can see on the picture in the left, that lion is particularly interested in the buffalo that are walking by. Lions are also a really important species to study because of how much their populations have been declining. Lions used to exist far and wide. North America actually had a lion at the time of the last ice age. This was just called the North American lion, and it looked pretty similar to the ones we have today. They also used to exist in Mediterranean Europe. So with the exception of one tiny population in Asia, all lions now are living in sub-Saharan Africa, and their population has just drastically declined. About 100 years ago, we think there were 200,000 lions in existence, and we're talking free-ranging wild lions. Today, there are around 30,000, but the truth is we actually don't know the exact number. These are all estimates. I'm going to play this video for you guys while I keep talking, just so you can check out lions interacting. But these population declines are concerning, and a recent study predicts that this will only increase. So that study predicts that in the next 20 years, many lion populations will decline in half again. And this is because of human population growth in the area and land use change that is due because of that. So things like constructing new roads or constructing more homes, things that pop up as physical barriers for lions to access the habitat that they need, or the food or the water that they need. And so, like I said, I study human-lion conflict in Tanzania. Tanzania is located just below the equator in East Africa, and more specifically, I do my work in and around a national park called Tarangire National Park. If you can see with my pointer, we have the famous Mount Kilimanjaro around here, and we've got Serengeti National Park around here. So Tarangire is located in the famous northern Tanzania tourist circuit. So we have people coming here from the city and coming here from other countries with hopes and expectations to see Tanzania's marvelous wildlife, including lions. And these people usually come with positive associations of lions and admiration. And I think we should. Lions are a beautiful species, but we also need to understand that the people living amongst lions or closer to lions have a very different experience and very different concerns when it comes to interacting with these animals. And so to zoom in closer on my study area, Tarangire National Park, I think it's important to describe what's going on in and around the park so that you understand why I'm studying what I'm studying. And so in the national park, we've got this major river called the Tarangire River, and this is a major permanent water source for wildlife. And so it keeps the area very lush and green. It provides a lot of water vegetation for herbivores, such as zebra and wildebeest and elephant, who need to have some sort of food and water supply. And because of this, it maintains the prey for lions to eat. And so this is a critical area. Just outside of Tarangire National Park on the right or to the east, there are these great savanna plains. And this is where locals live. And many locals here keep livestock, so they'll go out and graze their livestock. And in the wet season, this area gets a lot of rain and the vegetation grows considerably. And so wildlife in the national park will actually move out into this area in the wet seasons. The national park is not fenced, so wildlife can move freely, which is fantastic. But because of this, these are the areas where humans and wildlife come into contact, and if we're talking about lions, come into conflict sometimes. So these two areas, both in the national park and directly to the right, this is where I conduct my research. I will say that to the left of the national park, or to the west, there are lots of farms. Farmland is very dense in this area, and because of that, wildlife don't move out there so much. And directly to the north is a second national park that I've been to, as the picture might suggest. It's full of elephants, which is very fun to go look at. And this national park is actually separated by a highway, as indicated in this red line. So wildlife don't actually move back and forth between these two national parks too much. So again, my focus is really here in the grazing area and also inside the national park. And so when I talk about wildlife moving out and moving out of the national park and looking for food resources, I'm talking about animals like these wildebeest and zebra moving out and looking for more grassland to graze upon. And the picture on the right, there is a lion hiding. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to maybe try and find it. But lions depend on this area to blend in and then eventually find prey and attack and find food resources. So the lion is located right here. And so human-wildlife conflict happens when lion habitat goes from looking like this to something more like this in the same area. And so I'm talking about electricity poles and permanent houses and farms and all things that are very important to the locals and very important for their lives. But again, barriers to lion movement and things that take away from lion habitat or water supplies or food supplies. And so when I talk about the locals and when I talk about these people that the lions are in conflict with, I'm mostly talking about the Maasai tribe. This is the dominant ethnic group in the region. They're known for their intricate beaded jewelry that the women make, but the men and women alike wear. The women are often referred to as Maasai mamas. The men are often referred to as Maasai warriors. This tribe has historically been nomadic, meaning that they own livestock like cows and goats, and they'll travel long and far to graze them so that their livestock have access to adequate grass resources. Recently, in addition to keeping livestock, they have begun farming more and more. So they have begun to settle down in areas permanently in order to plant crops and invest in new ways to make money. And this is very important because poverty is very widespread in the area. So for the local people to have steady income supplies, not just through livestock, but also through crops, is very important, not just economically, but also culturally. And so human-wildlife conflict happens when lions are moving around in the areas where humans live, looking for their prey, but they bump into something else, the livestock owned by the Maasai. Now, lions don't go out on purpose looking for livestock. They're going out there, they're looking for zebra, they're looking for wildebeest, but if they bump into livestock and they're hungry, they're going to attack. And this is really unfortunate for the Maasai to lose a livestock, to lose a cow or a goat to a lion is a huge loss, not just culturally, but economically. this is a source of income. And like I said, poverty is significant in the area. And so oftentimes, historically, the Maasai have kind of retaliated when one of their livestock has died. They've gone out and retaliated and killed a lion. Usually the lion that they think killed their livestock. And this is really unfortunate for those of us who know that lion numbers are declining. But, for the Maasai, for them, this is insurance that they've protected their livestock as much as possible. And so thankfully that's changing for the most part. Retaliatory killings are not as common as they used to be, but they still exist. Thankfully, the local community has started something called community-based conservation. And what this means is that the local community is going out and they're monitoring lion movement. And if they know where lions are moving, they tend to go and take their livestock somewhere else. And this is just pure safety insurance, trying to take their livestock somewhere where lions haven't been seen in hopes that they will continue to not see lions and that their livestock will be safe. I really like the picture on the right. This is a Maasai homestead. These thatched roofs are Maasai homes, and then these circular areas where you see white and brown blobs, that's the livestock, and these are livestock corrals. In Swahili, we call these bomas. Swahili is one of the dominant languages in Tanzania. And so another way people have tried to do conservation is by strengthening these bomas, or these corral fences. And so one way to do that is to change them from historically being tight bristles of branches and changing this into chain linked fences. And basically what people have been doing is planting trees and then kind of nailing the chain linked fence around the trees. And so they're creating fences that are stronger, so less likely for predators like lions to come and burst through. And they're also more environmentally friendly by planting trees, which is fantastic. For me, these efforts are great. They've been proven to be successful. Lion attacks on livestock have decreased, and therefore human retaliation and killing of lions has also decreased. But to me, this doesn't totally answer the question of how can humans and wildlife coexist? How can they use the same landscapes? I don't just want to answer the question by having people and lions totally avoid each other. And so to answer that question, I work in a field called conservation genetics. And what this means is I use genetics, or DNA, to try and help conserve lions. And my friends and people who do this also lovingly call it poop science, or poop sci. And I think it's very accurately named, because what I do is I go out looking for lions, but not just lions. I'm specifically looking for their poop. This is more formally called scat. So I say I'm going out looking for lion scat, but if I see lion scat, I personally am very happy. This is exactly what I want. This will give me all of the data I need. So what I do is I collect scat, and then from that, I extract the lion DNA from it, and I run it through something called a DNA sequencer, which in this picture kind of just looks like a mini fridge, but it's a very fancy machine. And with these results, I can actually identify each individual lion, and I can start to measure where they're moving in the landscape. And so I go out in the field, oftentimes with teammates. So in that picture, I've got my friends Christine, Maleji, and Venice. But we'll go out driving, and thankfully lions are very kind to us because they enjoy walking along the roads that we also travel along. So oftentimes we find scat on the roads or on the sides of roads, and that means we don't have to be walking in bushes and thorns for miles before we find scat. But I go out and I find really interesting things when I'm out in the field in Tanzania. So in this picture, I found porcupine quills, and they were gorgeous. I think a porcupine must have had a bad run-in with someone the night before, because these quills were sprayed everywhere. I also found this giraffe skull. I think the giraffe passed away from natural causes, But I love this picture. I think it's just so beautifully preserved, and who would have thought that when I'm out there looking for poop, I also would find a giraffe skull. But obviously, I am most excited when I see signs of lions, as you can hopefully tell from my face and me smiling at all of this poop I just found. And I want to talk a bit more about this poop. I'm sure you guys had no idea that when you signed up for this Google Hangout that you'd be here looking at pictures of poop with me. But if you look closely, you can see hair follicles in the scat. And this is how you know that this is carnivore scat, because this means that the carnivore took a big bite out of an animal, and its stomach digested most things that it consumed except for the hair. And so, based on that alone, we can say, okay, I think that this scat might be lion or maybe leopard scat. Actually, after talking with my colleagues, we think that this picture is of leopard scat and not lions. But the beautiful thing about genetics and DNA research is that the DNA results will tell me whether or not it's a leopard or a lion. And then once I figured that out, I can determine whether or not I want to use the data. And so to talk a bit about what I do with the DNA results, the picture on the left is not mine, but I think it does a really good job of visualizing what I like to do with my research. And so what the DNA results can tell me is where in the landscape lions are more or less likely to live. And that's what you can see with the colors. So areas of green, you can think of areas where lions are more likely to live. And red areas are areas where lions are less likely to live. And then from that, I can also ask the question, okay, also, where are lions most likely moving? What pathways are they using? And that's what you can think of when you look at the black lines on this map. And so from this data, I can say, okay, we know where lions are probably living. We know where lions are probably moving. Therefore, we know where we should focus our conservation efforts for lions. But that's too simple. And that would be too easy of an answer, because the fact of the matter is some of those places where lions are moving or lions are living are also places very valuable for humans, whether it's out protecting livestock or perhaps farming. And so what I like to do too is after I get these lion results, I'd like to go back and also ask, okay, well, where are humans moving? Where are humans living and using the landscape? And how can the lion use of the landscape and the human use of the landscape work in a way that benefits both? And so to sum up what I do and what I study and the types of information I use, I'd say there are two components to my research. First, there's the wildlife component, and there's also the human component. And so for wildlife, or lions specifically, I want to know about their connectivity. Where in the landscape are they moving? Do we need to help create more habitat space to help increase their movement, or are they doing okay? And how's the health of their population? Are we worried about the population declining a lot and very soon? Do we have to speed up our efforts? Or is the lion population doing pretty well? And for humans, I'm very interested in what are the human needs? What do they need to do to make money, to survive, and to have productive lives? What do they need in the landscape? Do they need more land for grazing? Do they need more lands for farms? And also, are they tolerant to wildlife? Do they mind living close to wildlife, or would they prefer to live very far away for wildlife? And based on all of this information, my goal in the next couple of years as a PhD student is to map something called a coexistence landscape. And what that means is mapping the lion needs, like the colored map you just saw, and mapping something similar about human needs, and combining them in a way so that we can understand how humans need to use the landscape and how lions can use the landscape, but also allow for both to use the landscape, but not have negative impacts on lions or humans. And what this might mean is that perhaps someday, with more people in the area, they need to build a new school. And what I hope to do with my results is say, okay, a new school needs to be built. The humans in this area need a new school. But where can we build it so that there's as little impact as possible on lions? And so what that might mean is building it somewhere in that map that was more red, somewhere where lions are less likely to live or move. The same could be applied for a highway. And perhaps the locals in the area need a new highway to connect to the city or to ship out their crops better. Where can we build this highway that has as little of an impact as possible on lions? Where will it hurt lions the least? And to summarize, I think that humans and carnivores, or specifically Maasai and lions, can coexist. They can live together. And the fact is they've been doing this. They've been living together for centuries. The only challenge now are that there are new challenges. The human population has been growing more than it has in the past. And whatever new technologies develop in the future, we're going to need to try and consider them and consider how they impact lions and whether we need to change where we use certain technologies. And for lions, the fact of the matter is they do threaten humans. So we need to consider which areas we can allow lions to thrive and persist, and which areas should humans get the priority. And so humans have been coexisting with carnivores. Maasai have been coexisting with lions for centuries. And even though this seems to be a problem right now, I'm confident that humans and carnivores can continue to live together and near each other in the future. We just need to find new ways to figure out how to do so. And so I think with that, I will hopefully wrap up and switch my screen share back to my face. But those are all of the things I'm thinking about with my research right now. And the past year and a half, I've been doing preliminary research, and I have some huge exams coming up that I'm trying to not think about. But once those are over, I'll actually be going out in the field and really starting to collect lots and lots of data. So maybe in a year or two, I can give you all some answers for all of these questions I've just asked.
Well, we're looking very forward to that. But in the meantime, can we go to question and answer and have kids talk to you about some of the stuff you shared today?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, we had this like wild, shuffling of classes while you were talking, but we'll start with Mrs. Bendo's class. So if you guys want to come up right to the screen, that would be great.
Yep. How long can lions live without eating?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And you might have stumped me. So I'm pretty sure. So lions are really interesting because a buffalo, like in that picture I showed earlier, could walk by a lion and it'll let it and it won't attack. So lions can actually go a few, I want to say 1 or 2 days without eating, and it's okay. And they only attack actually when they're very hungry. So they'll let prey walk past them a lot of the time. So they'll watch a gazelle walk by their pride and they'll have no interest. And this just means they're not hungry. So they really only attack when they're hungry, which is, I think, really interesting. But yeah, I would say a day or two. And after that, they'll start to get a little hungry and anxious for some food.
The questions only get harder from now, by the way. It's going to increasingly stumping you. That's the plan. All right. Mr. Wiseman's class, if you guys want to come up and ask a question, go right ahead. For some reason, it's not letting me demute your mic. So if you just go to the top of the screen, there's a little microphone symbol. Just click that, and it'll, there you go. Go ahead, Mom.
What are girl lions called?
Ooh, I'm not sure if I heard that.
Say it again, louder.
What are girl lions called?
Oh, so female lions are called lionesses. And you probably know what they look like because they don't have manes. They don't have the fluffy hair like the men do. Although I will say recently someone photographed a female lion that had a mane and everyone was freaking out. They were so excited that a female lion looked like a male. But yeah, they're called lionesses, and they're actually notoriously known to be much more energetic, aka less lazy than male lions. Male lions are known for sitting back while the females go out and hunt. So I think they're pretty cool. I think it's a great female power. But.
And on that excited feminist note, let's head to the Virginia class that joined us. It's Miss Webb, Miss Roach, mix of the two, whole bunch of people. All right, you guys can come on up. Again, my mic, there we go.
How have you always been interested in lions, or has your research just shifted to that?
Oh, thanks for that question. So it's a split of both, kind of. So like I said, I studied abroad when I was in college in Kenya and Tanzania, and so I knew that was the location where I wanted to do research. But the truth is, I would have been really happy, using the same questions on any sort of animal in the area. So I would have been happy to study gazelle or zebra. But what actually ended up happening was when I started my PhD program, I talked with my advisor, my professor, about my interests, and he said, "Oh, that sounds exactly like someone I know who's currently working in Tanzania." And so he put me in contact with her, and she runs a phenomenal NGO that focuses on human-lion conflict. And so that's actually how I ended up studying lions for my PhD. Was, I found someone with mutual interests, and if I studied lions, it would help her work out too. So I am so happy to study lions, but I also would have been happy to study something similar or something else.
Well, when you started the hangout, you talked about carnivores being lions and tigers, and then your third one was bears, and I just wanted to say, oh my.
Oh yeah.
We got a question written in from a class, which is, how long do lions live?
Yeah, so in the wild, they typically live anywhere from 10 to 14 years. And I believe males are known to live a little shorter than females. And this is because they're the ones going out and kind of defending their territory, so usually attacking other males, and this hurts them. I did just read that the oldest a lion ever lived for was about 20 or 25 years, but this was in a zoo. So this was a lion that was not out fighting, not experiencing any sort of injury, but I assume being taken well care of, I'd hope.
A pampered lion.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Mrs. Hoffman's class. Now, I know you guys just wrote in a question, but let's see if you guys can actually say it. If you want to come up to the mic, it's just that I can't demute mics. You can come up and demute your own. So if you want to do that, it's just at the top of the screen, and then you can ask it directly if you want. There you go. Is it working? It might not be working. Mary, can you hear them?
No, I can't, but I do see their question.
Okay, so let's answer the question then. Perfect.
Okay, so what kind of food do the Maasai eat? Do they hunt? So no, they don't hunt. They mostly actually eat a vegetarian meal. So they'll eat a lot of potatoes or other types of root plants and carrots and cabbage. When I was over there, what did I eat? I ate lots of cabbage and green beans. They will eat goat, not for every meal. It's more for a special occasion. But the Maasai love to drink chai, which I know for those of you that know or drink tea, chai describes a very particular spice, but for the Maasai, chai just means all tea. And for them, chai is tea with a whole lot of milk and a whole lot of sugar. And if you can tell from my biography, I really like sugar. So I'm a fan of the tea there. They also eat a lot of fried breads. There's one food in particular that I really like. It's called chapati. It's similar to naan, for those of you who know what naan is. It's a flat bread. The chapati that I've had is very oily, and you use it to kind of pick up food and eat it with other foods. So you don't eat it plain, but I think it's delicious.
We'll get to the other written question from that class in just a second because it's hilarious. But we'll go back to Mrs. Bendo's class for now. So if you guys want to come on up, go for it. Just make sure the mic's demuted, and then you'll be good to go. There you go.
Tiger run a walk?
Nice and loud.
How far can a tiger run a walk?
And how fast?
And how fast?
Ooh, I might have to Google how fast. So for lions, their territory or how far they roam really depends on how big their territory is. And again, this is all about who they've fought recently. So sometimes pride territories are smaller than others. I know that the biggest or the largest their territory can be is something like 100 square miles, which is really big. I don't even know what to compare that to. But it's big, and I know that in one day, lions are known to travel as much as something like 15 miles, I believe. In terms of how fast, they're not as fast as cheetahs. They're relatively slow. If I had to guess, I would say 15 miles an hour. You know, faster than humans for sure. If a lion were to be interested in you, we might be in trouble. But they're not as fast as cheetahs.
Okay. In a quick Google search, they mentioned that maximum for lions is 80 kilometers in short bursts. You would know a little more about that than I would. That's
80 kilometers in an hour? Whoa.
In short bursts, so like really angry. Right. Yeah, okay.
Ooh, that sounds scarier than I was making them out to be much nicer. Or less scary, I should say.
We got another written in question, which is there a most dangerous type of lion or a subspecies or a region where they have had problems in the past?
Yeah, dangerous in terms of for humans, there are the dreaded man-eating lions, and this has occurred in several places, and one of these is in Tanzania. It's in a place called Ruaha, which is a national park. The man-eating lions there, this is not a normal lion behavior. So eating humans is actually something learned, and scientists think this is sort of like a freak event where lions were either really hungry or mistook a human to be something else, and somewhere along the line, a lion attacked and perhaps ate a human. When this happens, lions in the pride, like I said, they're social, they'll pick up on this behavior, and so there's a chance that they might actually start doing this. And so this is relatively rare. Thankfully, this does not exist where I do my work, so I feel a bit safer, but I've heard fun stories from other researchers, locking themselves in their tent at night and hoping for the best. So this exists, and this would be the most dangerous for us. But again, it's rare, and it's sort of like a freak, unnatural thing.
Excellent. All right, we'll go back to Mr. Wiseman's class. If you guys have a question, just come on up and demute the mic and go for it. Okay, go.
How good can lions hear and see?
Ooh, you guys are going to make me Google a whole bunch of things. So lions are phenomenal. Let's see. Lions are good at seeing in the dark. So they hunt most of the time at dusk and when it's about to rise. So they have very good eyesight, and they have better eyesight than us in the dark. So if you're ever going to Tanzania when the sun goes down, I would highly recommend that you stay inside or stay close. Google says that in terms of if you want to know how far away they can actually see, they can see about five miles away, or for the Canadian viewers, 8 kilometers. So that's really impressive. That is much more than humans can see usually. When you're standing on a flat plane, you can see for miles, but you can't see very well. In terms of how good they can hear, it is several kilometers away. And so the reason I know this is some lion researchers will actually drive out into the bush, and they want to attract lions to come to them. And what they'll do is they'll play sounds that they hope attract lions. And so one of these is kind of the sound of an animal in distress, so maybe a buffalo in distress, and the lion will hear it and think, a weak buffalo, I'm going to go and get dinner. And so if I remember correctly, they can attract lions up to about 15 kilometers away, although that's best case scenario. I'd say something less than 10 kilometers is ideal. So lions have good hearing too. Again, much better than humans.
Your excitement when you talked about the lions going for the weak buffalo is just makes that.
I love
Also,
it. You're tricking the lion to get your data. Or your poop,
for anyone
or
who wants
whatever
to
it
look
is.
it up later too, if you want to see lions using night vision, there's actually footage of them hunting an elephant, like a pride of lions hunting an elephant at night where the elephant can't see, but all the lions can see perfectly. It's really neat. All right, we'll go back to the Virginia class. So come on up, guys, if you have another question. There you go.
What is the biggest data you have received from lion scat?
Ooh, like the biggest lion scat? Oh gosh. So in terms of like genetic data, the funny thing is that all of it ends up being the same no matter how big the scat is, although the quality is a lot different. So actually the important thing is how fresh the scat is. It sounds a little silly, but the fresher the poop, the better the DNA. In terms of the biggest scat, what I would say is if you make two fists and put them together, that's what I normally see for data, aka poop.
Just to make sure, and you guys can like give me a thumbs up in that class. That was the question you guys were asking, right? Because I know you. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Something about data. Yeah.
Just make sure. All right. The question from Miss Hoffman's class that they said earlier. It's a two-part question, and it's going to be very tricky. What's your favorite thing you learned about in university, and what's your favorite Stranger Things character? Which, because it's a quick answer, will totally add to the hangout here. So go for it.
Okay, so my favorite thing to learn, oh gosh. So in college, I just loved taking any sort of class that talked about the outdoors, wildlife, plants. I took an amazing botany course, and I know I don't study anything that has to do with plants, but I learned all about plants and how they defend themselves and how some plants are poisonous and some are prickly. And for me, that was one of my favorite things to learn, because this thing that's living, but it doesn't move or talk or make noise like we do, it defends itself, and nothing to do with lions or perhaps what you'd think I'd say. But for me, that was one of the coolest things to learn. Since starting graduate school, I've been doing a lot of statistics or math, and I think most people will tell you that's not as fun. But and my favorite Stranger Things character, oh gosh, you will probably see it coming, but I love 11. I think she's so cool, and I want to know more, hopefully in season 2, about her life and what she's going to do with the monster. So.
Awesome. All right, we'll do one more round of questions. So for Mrs. Hoffman and Mr. Reed's class, if you guys want to write yours in, because I know the mic's having some trouble, but we'll start back again with Mrs. Bendo's class. So come on up, guys, and we'll do the final round. And there. So yeah, come on up, and if you guys have any more questions. No more questions. Okay, that's fine. We'll go to Mr. Wiseman's class. If you guys have another question, come on up.
All right, so I'm hijacking my kid's microphone here. First of all, I think all my kids just told me to go outside at night during Tanzania, so I don't know what that means.
Oh no.
Secondly, I just want to know, like, what should I expect as far as just anything? I mean, I'm used to the United States, so what kind of things should I expect when going to Tanzania?
Let's see, so many things. There's definitely culture shock. Obviously, it's really interesting. People will definitely see you and you'll stick out like a sore thumb. And so people are going to want to come up to you and talk to you and perhaps be much more friendly than you're used to in the United States. I know I'm from the Northeast, and we're notorious for kind of not being as friendly as the South or maybe other parts. So you guys might actually come from much friendlier parts of the United States, but the people are so friendly out there, and they always want to know about how their wildlife and how their ways of life compare to your way of life. So you should be ready to talk a lot about where you come from, even though you're in this new place hoping to learn about that. In terms of when you're going to Tanzania, let's say you're looking for lions, you actually are more likely to see lions around the time of day that I just said they hunt. So in the morning and just before the sun sets at night. And so if you see lions in the middle of the day, you're actually really lucky. I drove past lions midday once, and I almost missed them because they were laying out on the grass, snoozing. They sleep a lot in the middle of the day because it's hot. A lot of wildlife do, and it's easy to miss them. They camouflage pretty well. But so many things. I could keep talking about how to prep for Tanzania, and I'm happy to do that on the side.
If you want to know more, you can always send an email and go from there, but it is a marvelous place. All right, do lions ever attack the Maasai? A written-in question.
No. Is it possible? Yes. But this really doesn't happen. Again, the Maasai just historically have been living in the area for centuries, that they know so much about lions. In many ways, they know more about lions than lion researchers. And so lions don't attack Maasai for two reasons. One, Maasai don't go out when they know that lions are hunting or preying upon what they need to eat. And the second thing is again, lions don't typically go after humans. The only reason that would happen is if the lion felt cornered or threatened, something like that. And again, that doesn't happen.
All right, and we'll drive it home with the Virginia class, which looks like every student wants to ask a question. So come on up, guys.
How do the lions decide how much food each lion gets in the pack?
Okay, this is, the answer is very selfishly. So again, I talked about how the female lions will go out and do the hunting, and they'll go out and they'll get the food for the pride. They'll bring it to the pride, and then the male lions will start eating first. And so it's typically something hierarchical, meaning that whoever is socially in charge of the pride, so usually the males, they'll eat it first. And then when they're done, they'll kind of let the females come in, and then the juveniles or the young cubs will come in, typically while the females are eating, and also continue after. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so at the end of every hangout, what we do, Mary, is I'm going to demute everyone's microphone. A few classes have had to go for lunch. But if Mrs. Webb's class, Mrs. Hoffman, you guys can join me in saying a big thank you to Mary for joining us today. So thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah.
That was
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening.
I've ever had from a class. Well done, guys. All right. We hope you guys can join us again soon. Mary, you're welcome back anytime. Please, share your adventures and bring back some more great news and data for us.
Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you for listening.
All right. Have a nice day, guys.